Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Coach D, the Wild Man, doing an episode of MMA Fight Camp. 205 is in the books, and a lot of questions came up with the win with Conor McGregor and how easy he was able to defeat Alvarez. So we're talking about the involvement of the fight game. Is your fight game evolving? Is the question that a lot of commentators were asking. So when you look at some of the other fighters that are in the roster, who can deal with Conor McGregor's fight IQ and who can deal with his just accuracy and strikes? If you look at the beginning of UFC and MMA, you had a lot of individual combat abilities. So you had wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, boxing. You know what I'm saying? You had a lot of different individual arts. And then with the resurgence of jiu-jitsu in Horace Gracie, he showed that a dominant one particular skill set can be very effective in the ring. Then from there, it evolved to a great wrestling base was a good foundation to have to combat jiu-jitsu. Then from there, when having a good striking game like boxing was good to have. Now you mixing boxing and wrestling, or boxing and jiu-jitsu, things like that. But you still have those elite fighters who are just so dynamic in their particular skill set that a lot of fighters who are evolving in the fight game are being simply just decimated in the ring, and it seems like they're not even on that fighter's level. When Conor McGregor was able to just dismantle Alvarez in the second round, going from the first into the second round, it was like people were like, oh my God, what did we just see? And he's not the only one that's doing that. It's just right now he's the only one that's such a mega star that has covered so many aspects of the fight game. You're just taking the most notice. Now we have several fighters who are as evolved as Conor McGregor. You have Dominick Cruz. He was the first one that brought in stellar footwork into the ring before stellar footwork was even mentioned. He was the first one to bring out just unable to get hit. So when it came to the UFC, what do they want to see? They want to see spectacular knockouts. They want to see spectacular submissions. They want brawls. See, these are things that were winning favor with the fans. But then you get somebody like, Dominick Cruz, who his game plan, you're not going to hit me. It doesn't matter how powerful you are, you're not going to hit me. I'm not going to be where you're swinging at. You see what I'm saying? So, but he was so advanced in his skill set that people were like, well, he's not exciting. Yeah, he's not exciting when can't nobody hit him. You see what I'm saying? So he set the standard for the involvement of the fight game. He was one of the ones that was bringing out new styles that people simply had to adapt to. Okay, then you go into somebody like Demetrious Johnson, who's to me the pound for pound best in the UFC. Okay, because his well-rounded style made you unable to adapt to what he's doing, because he's excellent in takedowns, he's excellent in footwork, his accurate striking, his seeking for non-stop submissions, and his overall speed made him the blueprint of what a well-rounded fighter should look like. So when you look at him and how he made all his fighters look like they're not on his level, he was doing the same thing that Dominick Cruz and Conor McGregor were doing. Okay, but Conor McGregor has a better, well-rounded entertainment game than Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson is not a shit talker. He's not getting the mic and discredit his opponent. He's not going to make the country that the fighter comes from look bad. He's basically just going to just be a professional, but that doesn't translate into big dollars. That's why Conor McGregor is such a huge fan, because he's bringing a huge star, because he's bringing not only his country with him, but you just can't help but like him. No matter how bad you want to hate him, you're going to end up liking him overall because how good he is at what he does across the board. Okay? Then you got guys like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's bringing the point karate into the ring, and his style is so unorthodox. you have a hard time in figuring out what he's doing. He was like Machida. Machida brought in that particular style of, hard to hit, hard, because his linear movement, and you just couldn't get a beat on what he was trying to do. So Machida was another one who came out with an involvement of a fight game because he used karate, as his base of attack. So you see, that's what I mean by, is your fight game evolving when you're coming up against these type of fighters who's just showing that their skill set is so much dominant than yours? Can you just be a ground and pound fighter? Can you just be a heavy hand striker like Stevenson, who took on Frankie Edgar? He's known for stellar knockouts, and he's well rounded, but he's known for his heavy hands. Now, when somebody nullifies those hands like Frankie Edgar did, then what do you have left to fall up on? Frankie is well rounded, had great footwork. He evades strikes. And he's a great grappler and wrestler. So if all you have is heavy hands, how are you going to stop somebody like Frankie Edgar, which Stevenson wasn't able to do? You see what I'm saying? So when you get back to Woodley and Wonderboy fighting, Woodley had to involve his game in order to deal with the fighting style of Wonderboy, which he did. He evolved his game to where he can match and deal with Wonderboy's style. And it still ended up being a draw. So that shows you how good the Wonderboy style is adapting in the ring. So is your fight game evolving? Is your camp evolved? Is your coaches evolved to deal with the evolvement of the fighter? Conor McGregor has now reinvented the blueprint of what a fighter needs to be. You need to have a high fight IQ if you're even going to match up with somebody like Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor said Alvarez should have been in the ring with him, considering Conor McGregor's fight level. And if you look at it, that's exactly what happened. His fight IQ was so high that could nobody even deal with him. So what are you going to do in your fight camp to evolve? That's why you see a lot of fighters are now going to different camps. Before, camp loyalty was so strong. For you to go to a different camp was disrespectful. For you to leave from your camp that you grew up in and go to a different fight camp, you seem like you're betraying your camp. And in the heydays of individual fight styles, that's true. But now that the fight game is evolving so much, you just can't stay in one lane and expect to be great. Now, granted, some people are just that fighter. When you're looking at Khabib Magomedov, I'm saying it wrong. Okay, when you see somebody like him who decimated Michael Johnson on the ground and just basically beat him up on the ground, his grappling was such a high level that Johnson couldn't make the adaptation to what he was doing. Even though Johnson got off a couple of good strikes and wobbled Khabib in the first round, he couldn't maintain once Khabib got a hold of him and took him down and controlled him. Okay, so when you're seeing somebody of that caliber when it comes to grappling, if you're not evolving to that, how you expect to win down the line? He's going to always be that guy that you can't get by. Look at Demian Maia. Demian Maia focuses on one skill set, which is his jiu-jitsu, but it's such a high degree that it nullifies most fighters. Okay, but these are the exceptions. Look at John Jones. John Jones was another one of trailblazers who brought such an unorthodox fighting style and his long length. Well, he was one of the longest fighter in the UFC. In the early days, that's why you couldn't deal with him. His reach was so long, 84 inch reach, something like that. So what are you going to do? But overall, moving forward in 2017 and up, is your fight game evolving? We're still young. We're only 20 years or so into UFC, so we haven't produced that many champions over and over and over and over and over again. So therefore, so many people are becoming stars compared to everybody else. The UFC has like 300 something fighters roster, but you only have 2 or 3 megastars. Conor McGregor, megastar. Ronda Rousey, megastar. Okay, past that, who are your stars? Okay, now these guys are doing well. Your Demetrious Johnsons and your John Jones and a couple of other fighters. Just like the card, Alvarez, he's doing what they're doing okay as far as fighters go, but they're not mega stars. So this shows you we're still young in the sport. We're not producing enough stars. How do you produce a star? There is no school that teaches you how to not only be a great fighter, be a great commentator, rally the crowd, get them going, be controversial, appeal to their emotions. There's not enough fighters that's capable of doing that. So therefore, how are you going to invent the next fighter? How are you going to invent the next superstar? It's almost impossible to do without any kind of blueprint. Now that you have new owners whose background is primarily entertainers, most of the people who've bought into the company are actors. You see what I'm saying? So they're looking for the star power. So somebody like Conor McGregor, who's now holds 2 belts and is such a huge megastar, that he's being able to dictate the pace of the blueprint of what you're going to have to be if you're looking to make big money. So if you fight him, you're going to be an instant millionaire. But how many other fighters can say that? How many big fights can you generate to the Conor McGregor level? Not many. Okay, we're going to even see if Ronda Rousey can come back and do that for Nunes. Can she? Can she not? So without an evolving fight game, you don't even have that option. Joanna Jacek, she did so well in her fight, but it's still not what they were looking for. She used to be the person that just beats you to death. Carolina stayed in the game all 5 rounds and made Joanna look like she wasn't the killer that she initially came to the UFC to be. So even that can get confusing depending on who you're fighting. Okay, but we're all great fighters. Like you look at Muhammad Ali, he always had a stellar opponent that made him rise to that occasion. From George Foreman to I went blank. Anyway, Muhammad Ali always had that great opponent, and that was allowed him to always rise to that cable. He couldn't do it by himself. Conor McGregor, what makes Conor McGregor such a different fighter is that he's doing it all by himself. Other than Nate Diaz, there was no mega fight to where both sides was bringing so much energy into it that it became something special. Only Nate Diaz was the only one to do it. Alvarez didn't do it. He did a great job, but he didn't do what Nate was able to do. And nobody before Nate was able to do it. So that's why it became 196 and 202 was such a great fight, because Nate Diaz brought that mixture that nobody else was bringing. Okay, that's why you have fighters like Tyrone Woodley calling out Nate Diaz or calling out George St. Pierre. It's because they brought a stellar way about them that's going to make the fight great. So I can see why Conor goes, look, I don't want to call out anybody unless they're going to give me the star power that I need, as an opponent. Other than that, I don't need them. So is your fight game evolving? Are you going to be that next superstar that can bring excitement from both sides? It can't be just one fighter carrying the whole weight. That's why Ronda Rousey had a meltdown, because she was carrying the whole female division on her back as the unbeatable juggernaut from the female side. And then when she got, kicked in the face and knocked out by Holly Holmes, all that weight came crashing down because fans are fickle. As long as you're winning, we love you. When you don't win, we don't love you. But that's still the youngest of the sport. That's why football has such long-term fans, winning or losing, because they had a history of growth to get there. The UFC is still young. It's still young in the tooth. So over time, we're going to develop those steady, consistent fans. But in the beginning, we have to groom them. So hopefully this new ownership is going to help groom more stars. But without a winning record, without having the skill set to do it, you may not be that guy. If you're lackluster or you have one particular skill set that's on one day, off the next day, Conor McGregor is just, he's just mind-bogglingly good on his skill. And he calls it like he sees it. He said, I'm going to do this, and then he does it. But along with that fighting, he brings the energy outside the ring that people can't help but tune in. Everybody want to see him lose, but then he wins spectacularly. So he's gonna go down in the history book as one of the greats simply because he's breaking all the records on his own. There's nobody helping him break records. He's drawing up the buzz that makes it happen. If it wasn't for Conor McGregor, would Alvarez be able to shine like he did? And then now he has to recover from the decimation that Conor McGregor did. So his fight game is going to have to evolve. You see? So it comes down to you're going to have to cross a lot of different styles in order for you to be that guy. Okay? Or you're going to be that superstar. Or the UFC may stall if Conor McGregor never comes back. Because there's nobody else out there along with him that's doing what he's doing. You see what I'm saying? Just like Chael Sonnen, who didn't have the best record, but he was able to talk his way into stardom, and he did exactly that. Who else can do that? So who do you have? You have Chael Sonnen, Conor McGregor. Who else? Who else can talk their way into stardom? Nobody. At least Conor McGregor is backing it up more consistently than Chael did, but Chael had great fights too. But he wasn't on the Conor McGregor's level as far as what he was able to accomplish. Okay, now that John Jones is on the shelf for a year, who's your next headliners? If Ronda Rousey gets dealt with by Nunes, but I think she's going to, she's gonna go back on the shelf. Okay, so while Conor McGregor's taking a break, who's your fill-in star? So are you evolving? Are you evolving in the fight game? You see, if you're not, you can't ask for major money unless you have the skill set to do so. Okay, so that's the problems that we're having. Is your fight game evolving? So you have to look at the camp that you're in and the coaches that you deal with. Can they get you to that next level? Winning is part of it, but how you win is also part of it as well. And how you deal with the media, how you talk, how you create buzz. If you can't create buzz, somebody has to create that buzz for you. Okay? So if you don't have a group of people or reporters or somebody talking about you, there is no buzz to be created, no matter how good your record is. Demian Maia has been on a tear, but who's talking about him? You know what I'm saying? Demetrious Johnson has been on a tear, but now that the Ultimate Fighter's going on, that's the only reason why they're talking about it. Other than that, who's talking about him? And I'm a huge fan of Demetrious Johnson. Okay? Dominick Cruz, huge fan. Who's talking about him right now? There's nobody talking about him. You see? So without that consistent buzz, what do you do? If nobody's looking to fight you, what do you do? It's a rough game because we're still young in the sport. We haven't created any kind of standards. Conor McGregor is being the first one to create a standard. That monster is going to transform everything. So people are going to be demanding big money, but they got to deliver like Conor is delivering. You see what I'm saying? So that's going to be very interesting. So this is today's topic. We'll do a lot more. I just want to see, is your fight game evolving to be a star in the UFC? Okay? If it's not, you're going to fall to the wayside. This is Coach D, the Wild Man, doing an episode, MMA Fight Camp, talking about the involvement of the fight game. Are you in it or are you not? Follow me on Facebook, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. If you like what I'm doing, stick with me. If you don't like what I'm doing, let me know so I can evolve my fight game. All right? Do you hear from me again? Peace out.